What's up, guys? Welcome to class number 6. I hope you all had a wonderful 4th of July break and you enjoyed a little bit of time off. Um, so tonight we're going to be taking the next step, and we're going to be looking at the ways to combine type and image. Now, normally in sort of traditional graphic design training, you'd start out by doing like we did with symbols, simple learning with simple images, and then we sort of didn't venture into type. But I've sort of realized that like getting into type can sort of become its own world and take us away from what it is that we're doing and focusing on, and might not be as fun for new graphic designers. So what we're going to do is just experiment with type, because we're already doing that when we make PowerPoints, or the odd poster or wedding invitation, or any of those things that sort of are in our digital lifestyle that we're just doing anyway. So I thought tonight we'd maybe take a look at some great examples throughout history and play a little bit ourselves. I've got some files, a really cool website that you can head over to and then bring a photo right inside of Illustrator, and you can start to experiment with just moving type around. And I thought we'd do that first and then talk about going into Photoshop in the next coming classes. So I've had a chance to look at your guys' symbols, and I appreciate all of you guys posting your noun project links. I got to say, not everybody has. So yeah, that's important. If one would wish to pass the class and be a great designer in the future, getting on the stuff now is really what it's all about, right? So yeah, get on that, folks. Okay, we're now past that. We're moving on to new things, and we got another project coming up really soon. So yeah, I just want to be able to have you feel the success of posting to the noun project, dealing with the different things. I know some of you guys have been in touch with me about, your icons have been rejected, but then you've sort of regrouped and figured out what we needed to do, and you got them approved. So that's awesome. That's not new. That's not something that you'll stop doing, because as designers, we have to get into iterating, right? Sort of working through ideas, working through failure, pushing until we get the thing that the project needs. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say about icons. For those of you guys who submitted, I did post a grade for you, so you can go onto my courses and check that out. Good for you. Definitely some quality work. If you want to discuss anything, feel free to send me an email, and we can talk things through a little further. So anyway, without further ado, let's talk about type and image, okay? And we're going to go and do a straight web browser based lecture tonight instead of doing our normal PowerPoint, just because there's so many great things online that I want to show you that stuff there. Okay, so let's first and foremost look at some history. Okay, I am on a wonderful website that is in fact designhistory.org. So if you've got your browser open, which I'm sure you do because you're watching us, head over to designhistory.org, and we're looking at the origins of advertising section, specifically Madison Avenue. Okay, so if you've ever, Madison Avenue in New York City, if you have ever watched the show Mad Men, they are not mad like crazy or insane. They are mad because they are on Madison Ave. And that is where advertising lived in the 50s, or really from the 40s to about the 70s and 80s, and it still lives there today. But it's now, of course, through digital technology, grown to be everywhere and anywhere. Long ago, I was a Madison Avenue intern. I worked at a small firm called Gammon Raganessi Associates, which I loved. I did that in college, and we worked on a lot of food package design, which was super cool. So anyway, yeah, Madison Avenue rules. But the reason I'm showing you this is because I want you to see how advertisers are doing what we're saying is something that designers do all the time, which is combining type and image. So you can see here this corporate manual, right? The big push, right? You can see how this type, while it's just kind of sitting there, has a little bit of interplay with this illustration, right? That is of these, I guess they're chairs, or perhaps maybe, I don't know, maybe they're shopping carts. But they're kind of kooky and figurative and that sort of thing. But anyway, that's the point, is I want you guys to start to notice how type and image connect, right? Gestalt theory plays a role, right? So proximity plays a role, continuation plays a role, all those things, alignment, all the things that we looked at. If you want to refresh yourself on those principles, do so, right? Go back to previous videos, because now it really is going to matter, because we have to take these two foreign entities, right, letters and images, and make them jive, right, in a space. So there's just some great examples here, and we'll talk about some of the things, you know, that really matter and are traditional. So let me zoom this in even a little further here, so you can see here are right. We won't talk about the famous folks here, but there's a lot of great history that you should check out. But going left to right, you got the famous Levis Jewish rye ad, right, with this Native American man. And it says, you don't have to be Jewish to love Levis. And this was one of many. There was like one with a young African-American kid and a few others that sort of, you know, were anything but sort of what you thought of a Jew, I suppose. And this was, you know, from a while ago. And you can see here that, like, this is a very sort of simple approach to combining type and images. And it's, you have a photo and it exists in a square or a rectangle, and then type accompanies it outside of that space. Right, so that's what you're seeing there, and you know, it's a traditional way. I don't know if they were thinking about being groundbreaking and putting the type inside the image, like you can see two ads over with the Marlboro ad, right? So you know, there's good things and bad things that come with that. So if you look at the Levis ad one more time, having that Cooper black typeface, that's what that typeface is, by the way, sitting black against white gives you maximum contrast. Right? So if we're looking at that image, you know, the image itself is kind of perfect unto itself. I mean, perhaps you could get a little avant-garde and put some of that type in there. I bet you could. It'd be a fun experiment. But you've got a lot of different contrasts going on, meaning the hat and the hair and the shirt of that man are very dark. The background is sort of mid-grade, and then the bread is, of course, the brightest, right? Because it's the product. So they're going to do what they can in the advertising and photography world to make that thing really just kapow in your eyes. So that's a traditional example, right? It's just sometimes the photos can call for where type can go on the inside, but most of the time it's on the outside. So we'll keep checking out examples as to how that goes. Looking over here, right, you can see this is one of the famous VW ads. It's one of the many iconic ones. Again, type just right on the outside of a photograph. So yeah, but you know, if you look at this, one thing I want you to start to notice is look at negative space, right? So the positive object here is the VW bug. Everything around it, all that empty space, is the negative space. So a lot of times that's a normal place where designers would drop in type, right? It just makes sense because it doesn't have to go on the outside of the ad, but just somewhere that there's space for it on the inside. So that's the first place you want to look, right? So if we're writing down rules of thumb, right? First one place you want to look is, do I have negative space in the photo that I could plug in type, right? And does it look good? Does it have contrast? Right? That's the thing, is that type needs to be read. And if we can't read it, well, you know, we're not communicating well, right? Or if we're making it hard to read, then it's got to be for a reason. In most cases, 99.9%, it's going to be that it needs to be clear and bold and have good contrast. So looking now over at the Marlboro ad, right? This is a little sort of unique, right? Is that, like, traditionally designers have been going for a maximum contrast approach to things, while here we have maybe complementary colors, but we now have this typeface, right? It's a slab serif typeface. It's a Western style, perfect for Marlboro and the cowboy. But it's running now red type against a blue denim jacket, a white shirt, and then now a blue denim jacket again. So that's kind of crazy. So in order to make that kind of thing work, you need to have really strong, bold type. So this is an example that sort of is an exception to the rule, right, where you want to have a solid background behind type, or a very low noise background behind type, in order for this to work. But what's also really cool about this, let me get a little closer, is if you look at the type, right, there's a little dip in here, right? So there's this top part and bottom part of a word, right? It's the baseline and the cap height. Those are the sort of invisible lines that run along typography that keep letters flat on the ground, and then things running across the top in a somewhat even and aligned fashion. But if you notice, the A and the R, those letters don't go very tall. So they kind of fit that perfectly, where the cowboy's hand is, like, you know, about to grab a match, right, out of his or a Zippo lighter out of his rugged pocket. So that's a really interesting, great way to sort of fit type in, is to really sort of look at its shapes and look at the shapes that are forming, or the sort of image interplay that could make the connection between the type and the image. So this is a really successful, in my opinion, and strong way to do this, because it's breaking a rule but then making up for it by really fitting the type in very well. So two examples here that we see straight away, where type is outside the photograph and just accompanying the image, right? But still like borrowing colors, there's consistency. And then there's these very sort of avant-garde, but very contemporary. We appreciate this as contemporary design consumers, where type is almost superimposed, right? Embedded or juxtaposed on top of a photo, right? So really studying the photo and considering its interplay is going to be really huge. So let's keep going here, because there's some other really great ones. So I love this one by Gene Federico. He's a famous immigrant designer who worked for Women's Day, Harper's Bazaar, Elle, all the big fashion mags. Those are the ones that really sort of got a lot of these expatriate European emigrating designers in the late 40s, early 50s, because of the turmoil in Europe. So lucky for us. But this is an incredible example. I mean, gosh, look, he saw the beauty in how the word "go out" and then how this structure of this bicycle, right, this woman riding the bicycle, came together. I mean, it's really brilliant. This is one of the examples I always show of like why you should be a graphic designer, because when you can reach stuff like this, I mean, you've hit the mark completely. So this just reads very well, and then also has an amazing interplay between type and image, where now the O's become the tires on the bicycle. I mean, to be able to see that, you got to be on a level, right? It's like you got to almost really sort of like tap into the pareidolia effect, right? Remember when we looked at that, where we talked about seeing, Elvis and Toast and Falcor, the dog from Neverending Story in the clouds, all that great stuff. So if you're on that level and you're thinking in this world of optical illusion, and then you can bring it back to reality like this does by Gene Federico, oh man, you've done something incredibly well. So this rarely happens. I mean, you got to really set this up. You got to really plan for this. So what we're going to be doing tonight, some of us may hit those marks. We may have that moment of brilliance, but for the most part, it's to practice how to sort of get things to sort of stick together and play for that. But love this example. I just think it's really cool. And then even here, right, this Napier ad, it's horrible. It's incredibly decadent and sort of sharing the I don't know what you call this, bourgeois attitude of back in the day. So what I love about this one is just the simplicity of the image, right? Most of the information, the face and the type, as far as humans are concerned, right, those are the things that we're looking at, are up in the top left-hand corner. And the way that the type is set on the lady's hair and then the side of her face, again, is in that sort of Marlboro cigarette realm, where type is, it's going across sort of two fields of color. So that's got to work out really well, right? So you got to, number one, have good contrast, right? So that in order to achieve that. And then also, you want to make it so that it interplays very well. So when I'm looking at this, I'm seeing, certain things like this little curl, this little tail, foot that's coming off of the R here, right? It's sort of pointing towards her eye. And that's something that, like, when, we talked about gestalt theory, that people are very face biased, right? They're going to look at faces and want to look at people's faces, right, to sort of see on a human level, well, what's going on in that space and how should I sort of act, right? How should I feel about this? So when the information is directing us towards something that we're naturally going to look at anyway, well, that's just taking advantage of the natural flow and continuation of a space, right, of an image. So we've got all the information, right, as we said, the primary stuff happening here, but then this, snooty, the snooty chain just sort of like scrolls down and comes down the neck, and then we're looking at the jewelry, right? So, I'm assuming that Napier perhaps is some sort of fashion or luxury brand sort of thing, and we're meant to look at the expensive stuff on this pretty lady, right, who's being very snooty, right? But again, that interplay of type and image working in a cool way. So Here, let me show you guys these here. So this is Otto Storch, right? So these are McCall's ads, McCall's magazine, right? Not the School of Business, but McCall's. Super cool. You have these ladies who are like dancing the Charleston, right? Just sort of breaking it down like 50s lady style. And here they are now with these like very whimsical typographic patterns. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Let's see, McCall ad type. Let's see if we can find that guy in images. McCall's ad. Oh, wow, finding all sorts of fun things, aren't we? Let's see here. All right. We'll have to look it up by Otto. I bet we'll come up now. Yeah, here we go. Let's see if we can find a good example. Yeah, there's a few of his that are really good here. Okay, so this one, oh, Google Chrome, no dice. All right, this one might be a little better, but it's so small. Let's see if we can get a better one here. Yep, a little bit better. I hope that's a little bit easier to see. So McCall's patterns, right? And then there's all this words. Unfortunately, I can't read it because it is so small. But look at that, right? It's like the woman's gesture almost sort of makes us think. There's arrows going in all sorts of directions. She's looking up, right? Her leg is kicking, right? Her the way her hands come together forms an arrow, right? There's all these sort of angles and lines just coming off of this image, right? From an artistic perspective, you could sit there with a ruler and just start drawing all these lines that would just sort of make all these vectors happening, and that's what's going on in the image. Now the graphic designer comes in and just sees the perfect opportunity to rest all this type in almost like a spine, right, where the type just sort of sits and goes goo 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 goo, just like vertebrae, all along this space, and then resting on the heel, right? Very whimsical, very fun, very exciting, cool way to do this. Now, what I like about this is that the designer chose to use the negative space in the photo, but at the same time playing with the gesture, right? If you've ever taken a drawing class, you've done gesture drawings. So this is an example of I guess a gesture typography setting that works incredibly well. So that's one. Here's one that's like really cool. Yeah, I think you guys will get a kick out of this one. Look at this, the 40 winks reducing plan. And look at that typeface. You got this young woman laying on sort of a bed in nowhere. Maybe it's Princess P, perhaps, right on the giant bed. And then look at how she bends the type. Sorry, I'm geeking out. I'm cheesing hard because this is so cool. This absolutely sort of shows what could be incredibly boring and just type, but then makes it exciting, right? All of a sudden now this type has feeling, right? We could look at this and be like, this is a plan for growing slimmer and shapelier. It involves a diet, right? It's like it almost sort of feels like we're in Alice in Wonderland or something like that. So anyhow, this is a good example of Otto Storch and his work at McCall, just sort of showing you like how he really plays very well with type and image. I mean, if you look up Otto Storch and just check out his work, I mean, you're going to be just like inspired by all of the different pieces that he's done that are just so smart. There's just a lot of smart stuff in here. And yeah, this was a revolution in design because now we're getting designers from a completely different culture seeing our culture in a completely different way, right? Wanting to sort of get into the American dream. So yes, what better place to be funky than McCall's magazine? Okay, groovy. All right, so moving along here. So some cool examples on designhistory.org, right? That really sort of show an interesting way for type and image to come together. Okay, but let's look really quick at some contemporary examples. And what better place to do that than on Pinterest? Yes, of course. And let's see here. Oh no, all right. Type over image. So some of you guys may have some apps on your phone that do this. This is like a huge new kind of mega trend right now. Like I know there's Foster and Overgram and like a few others that sort of experiment with this idea of taking typography and then putting it on top of photos, right? Let me see if I can find a really cool idea. Let's see what we got here. I found a couple of Pinterest boards, and of course, what do? I shut the thing down. Yep, way to go, Mike. Awesome. All right, here we go. So awesome. All right, let's look at this one real quick. Are you kidding? I have to log in to see the photo? All right, no, we're good. All right. So here is on Pinterest here, and it says, think outside the box. And we have sort of a, you know, pedestrian kind of photo with a little bit of steam and looks like an Instagram filter put onto it. But then it's just, right, some sans serif, meaning there's no feet, typography, really thin and tall and geometric inside this box, put right on top of the image. And as we said before, there's some potential issues, right? So like when you have type set this way and we're running on very light areas and sometimes very dark, notice if you do your squint test that the letters that are on top of the dark, they read very well. You can still read them. And then the ones that are against the white or the lighter parts, they're a little harder to read. Not impossible, but harder to read. So this is just the thing that you want to like really make sure is bulletproof if you're going to do it. And one fun way to practice is to go out and get these apps, right? So here's Foster. Foster is P-H-O-S-T-E-R. I have this thing on my iPhone, and it has like pre-made typographical things that you can put on top of photos, right? Anything that you can shoot with your camera. So there's a bunch of stuff here. This is good for ideas, you know, if you're looking for some fun and cool ideas. But yeah, here's a, let's see if we can find one that shows like an example. Let's see. All right, this one might be good. Oh, of course, it's tiny. Come on, Foster, hook me up with some good ones. We're looking here. Let's see. Any good examples? Oh, taken back into the bad one. This one's not bad. Okay. All right, so these are like some of their examples that you can see. And yeah, this is incredibly hipster. Absolutely, right? It's very trendy. You know, the fact that now this type of graphic design production is put in the hands of anybody with a smartphone and $2.99 to download the app, you know, is good and bad. It has its drawbacks. So what that means in the big picture is that this is a trend and it's going to happen and it's going to go away. But as a designer, you should very intelligently figure out how to capitalize on it, right? Like try to see where it can really work and be applied well, because a lot of designers will take a trend and use it and then it's not right. It's just, you know, they're excited by it for different reasons than what their project is calling for. But yeah, hey, but right now we're experimenting, so who cares, right? This is absolutely a great place to come and to experiment. So Foster is one. And then I think, let's see, Overgram. Yeah, I think Overgram. Yep, so Overgram is another one that has, yeah, hey, look at this one. Keep dreaming, right? So here's like a photo somebody did with their sort of fingers, like when people do that to frame up an image, like they're being acting like a movie director. And here you can see perfectly, keep dreaming, just fits wonderfully in that space, and it's makes for a great poster. So yeah, sorry, I don't mean to dog on it. This could be brilliant. These things are all over Facebook and of course Instagram and all of those things. So if you have Overgram, you can participate now in Instagram and add typography. So yeah, there's lots of great stuff in here. So if you're just looking for ideas and like things to do as far as how you want to combine type and image, this is a great way to do it. Okay, so yeah, so Overgram, the Over app itself, and Foster are wonderful places to go, and just on a casual level, just experiment with this, right? To just sort of see how it goes, and you know, get a feel for like what works and what doesn't, because you know you can make 100 of these, and you know who cares, right? You can keep them and never show anybody, but you can experiment at the same time. So that's what I really want you to look into experimenting with, and finding out how this stuff comes together. All right, so Pinterest is another good spot, right? We looked at a few things. Quotes are really good for putting stuff on top. Okay, so the assignment that I'm going to give you guys tonight is we'll just play for now with words and image. I'll go through a demo and do that, and then give you guys point you in the direction of places you can get source images. Um, and yeah, but then we'll grow. We'll start to experiment with quotes, right, and maybe more text. So as you look around, you'll start to see, yeah, like some of this stuff is really great, and some not, but some of it's really cool. So good places for you guys to go and check out. So what I Googled, I looked for type over image, right? Because that's really what it is that we're looking for. We're trying to find where typography and images have interplay, right? And they're really doing what they need to be doing together. So, all right, so forgive the language on this one, but that's pretty cool, right? That's definitely an existing photo of New York with some smoke. Oh gosh, I hope that's not September 11th. That would be horrible. Yeah, let's just pretend it's not. And yeah, right? And then you have the new effing York in there. And it's good to go. And it fits perfectly, right? It's just doing what it needs to do as far as integrating. This is a little bit of a special effect because in Photoshop somebody has airbrushed, erased away, so the smoke, it looks like the smoke sort of surrounding the typography, and there's three-dimensionality to it. But still very cool, right? A good way to sort of think about what it is that you want to do. One other thing is, if you notice, this is a cool example. Sometimes you need to use things that hold the type, called containers. So in this case, there's a lot of containers, anywhere from these quadrifoils to some of these funky shapes, circles, squares, just everything in here. Yeah, that just allows you to have maximum contrast. There could be moments where you don't have great contrast, and you'll need a container. So these are some of the things to really sort of to think about. Okay, so that's sort of what we're going to be interested in looking at tonight. So I want to take you guys to a website right now where we're going to get some awesome photos that are free to use, that are royalty free, and mostly they're textures. We're going to come back to this a little later on, but right now I want you guys to head over to lostandtaken.com. Okay, so Lost and Taken, all right, and I'll make sure this link gets put up on my courses for you guys to get at, but this is Lost and Taken textures for free for designers, right? So they ask for $4 so they can get a 5-hour energy drink, and yes, I was just looking at vinyl cutters on Amazon, and that ad has made its way in here. It's an early birthday present, but as you scroll through, you'll start to see that there are some incredible textures on here, and you can. It's a blog, so you need to sort of go back in time to check things out. But I think, yeah, they also have this gallery up here. And then they have it by categories. So if you on the top navigation in Lost and Taken, if you go to the gallery, then you'll see there are sort of latest textures, and then there's categories. So paper, wood, concrete, stone, cardboard. There's so many great things here. Even this bokeh effect, right? See, you've seen this before, where people you can put a special effect on your lens that will make these blur shapes, and you can customize the shapes and stuff. Really cool. I think there's even an Instagram filter for it. So anyway, lots of fun stuff. Bubbles, torn paper. Gosh, it's endless, what you can kind of do. Okay, so all right, so let's play. I'm going to grab this torn paper right here. Okay, you see it here. It's at lostandtaken/gallery/torn-paper-6.html, and I'll make sure that this gets put up on my courses as well. So you guys have access to it. But we'll use this today. And to get access to these things, I think you just click on the image. Yeah, and it will open up the high-res version. So if you just click on it, it opens up the blog version. And then if you click on it again, it opens up the high-res. So as you can see, this is quite a big photo, right? So it's going to be a good quality resolution that I could print with. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, right now, right from the browser, I've got two ways that I can approach adding an image to Illustrator. So one could be that I simply save it to my desktop and then open it in Illustrator, or I could be a little more efficient and do this. I'm going to do Control key, click, and then I'm going to do Copy Image. Okay, I would normally do Save Image as from there, but I'm going to do Copy Image. kablamo. Okay, and then I'm going to migrate over to Illustrator Creative Cloud, and I'm just going to use the sort of standard letter size. It really doesn't matter what size you set it. We're just experimenting tonight. Okay, and then I can do edit or Command V, edit paste or Command V, and then paste that photo right in there. As you can see, it's much bigger than my 8.5 by 11 page, which actually is a good thing because that means that I can print it and it will print out high res. So yeah, so I've got a photo now inside of an Illustrator document, and that's cool because mostly Illustrator is for vector shapes, right, and typography. But in this case, because we want to play with type and introduce ourselves to a good type tool. Now, Photoshop and Illustrator can both do typography, both do high-res typography. But what I don't like about Photoshop is the pixel-based nature of it. I want to be able to have some good control over what I do as far as managing my type. So yeah, tonight we're going to use Illustrator because I want to have vector type. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. So, but I will say we'll get around to doing type in Photoshop as well because there are good reasons to use type in Photoshop over Illustrator, and I will get to that. So we are going to I'm going to shrink this real quick, and I'm doing Option and Shift key to do center scale. Okay, and what I actually was drawn to by this photograph is the fact that there's like so many angles, right? Because one of the things that is a lot of fun is that I could play with the way the type sort of sits and messes with the angles of the image. Okay, so let's get this guy. I'll make him a little bigger. All right, just so he's sort of running off the page. All right. So if this were cropped, it would look not like this. It would have the edges missing from here. All right. And we want to add some type now to start to begin the process of going through this combination of type and image. So I'm going to click on my type tool, and I'm pulling my tool palette out here right now. And here is the type tool right there. Okay, and you can hit the T key, and it will automatically go to that tool for you. It'll change your cursor to be the type tool. And once you do that, if you notice along the top, you start to get type-based options. So I know there's a few things here like stroke and opacity and that sort of thing that has to do more with lines. But then next to it we have character, and we can see the typeface that is set right now, or the font family as it says here. Myriad Pro, which is Apple's marketing, right? Their corporate typeface. And then there's the font style. There are multiple styles for different fonts, right? Sometimes fonts don't have a lot of styles, but this one does because it's a Pro font. And then the font size, right? And if you've ever typed a paper in Microsoft Word, you know, right? Like that 12-point or 10-point, depending on your professor, is the standard, right, for type. And that's true, right? Because 12-point type is sort of the I guess the optimal reading size for print. Okay. So anyway, whatever I now type will show up Myriad Pro, regular, and 12-point. And then last thing here to note is that it is in fact left aligned. Okay. I'm not going to get too heavy into typography tonight because we have a lesson for that coming up, but I just wanted you to see that there are really awesome tools available to you right now to experiment with. One quick thing, up in Window, if you go up to where it now says, if you scroll down to where it says Type, you can see all of the different type palettes that are available to you. Character, glyphs, paragraph, those are the ones that I use, at least for the most part. And that's all bunched up in that one location for you, ready to go, as well as the type menu option at the very top. So there's a bunch of stuff in here that is just redundant to some of the things that you're seeing around the space, but then there are also some extra options in there that we'll talk about, okay? But let's get to type. Okay, so I'm going to type the word torn, right, in all caps, and it's 12-point, which is really small, right? It's body copy size. It's a paragraph copy. It's not a title or a subheading sized typesetting. So what I can do is I can either mess with the numbers up here and set this to a little bigger, 24-point, 72-point. You can also type in a value like 125-point, and you can see the type gets bigger. Okay, But if I set it back, right, get back to 12 as I was before, notice there's transform tools surrounding the type. So, and this is really where the Shift and Option key, as we mentioned, are critical to scaling, because if you stretch type, squash it or stretch it, everybody's going to know, right? And it's more than others, right? Some people might not notice, but most people notice because they've seen type and they're acclimated towards how it looks normally. And if they notice a slight change, something's wrong. Yeah, they're like, oh, something's wrong. You know, what's going on? And believe it or not, squash and stretch type was so popular in the 90s. And I'm glad the 90s are over. Anyway, yeah, so I tend to not squash and stretch type. I really like to keep my proportions. So check this out. If I hold my Shift key and then I grab a corner, you'll notice that I can scale the type. Right, I'm even doing it inversely, right? Big and small. And this is just a nice quick way to just, boom, I need it this big, that's it, instead of trying to figure out type point sizes, that sort of thing. And then lastly here, if I hold Shift and then Option, I can center scale. And for type, that's a really great thing, right? You might want to like, okay, cool, I've got it centered on there. You don't want to play this game where you're then dragging it to make it bigger and then moving it back, right? Just center scale it. Just Shift, Option, boom, look at that, right? And it just grows really nicely on top of the image, okay? So I have this word torn, and then I have this image of torn paper, okay? So, yep, metaphor is quite obvious. So how do I make them marry, right? That's really where now the brilliance will come. That's where the, you know, she's got to go out, where, you know, there's a woman on the bicycle, and then the two O's going out are the tires. How do we hit that sort of level of brilliance? That will come, but how do we first sort of try what we're doing and make that happen? So we could go with the negative space, right? We have this image that has a lot of negative space, so we could move it around, right? So both things are movable. So let's just make sure that we say it, that both photos are movable, right? Or at least they should be. Some may not be, but this one is. So I could play with where it goes on the stage, right? And then I'm getting into a photographer's sort of treatment where I'm playing with cropping and composition, right? That's not exclusive to designers, or I should say to photographers, but you know, designers are using it too. We are not photographers, but we are media handlers, right? We will take a photo. We may buy a photo from a stock site and use it in an ad, or we may get something from Lost and Taken and want to combine it with type and create the next greatest, you know, Instagram sort of thing, or ad. So I mean, you know, we're in it. We have to make these choices, so we have to understand how images are flexible and fluid and everything can move. Okay, so first things first, right, is I could just position these two things and just, yeah, very simply, right, I'm very drawn to this little chewed out part, and I kind of want the type to, like, you know, interplay with it, right? So if I brought this back over, all right, now what I'm doing is I just dragged while I hold the Shift key, and that keeps my image on a level playing field. I've just messed it up. But then when I get close to where I want to be, I'm using the arrow keys, right? As I have the black arrow selected on the image, and then I'm using the arrow keys to sort of get that positioning perfect, right? So it might be that I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm playing like a first-person shooter right now, right? Because there's so much key work you got to do. And then I might want to, you know, shrink this down a little bit, make sure it fits really well, okay? So that could be my first treatment, right? That's like a first option as far as how I'm combining these two things, okay? Let me show you a trick. This is how I play in design where I want to iterate a bunch of ideas at once. Now I could start moving things around and, you know, try a bunch of ideas and see how it goes, but then I won't have anything to compare. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw just an invisible box with the black arrow around both my type and my photo. And then I'm going to copy click like we did with our icon, right, to flip it over to do two sides. And because these two items are selected together, just like our shapes last time with the icons, I can then just drag this over and click and drag and then make an exact copy. And then watch this, right? I can now try a second type treatment. What if I want to turn this torn, right? I want to rotate it, right? Let me show you what I did here. I grabbed the, make another artboard here real fast. Just a fast one. It won't be dimensionally perfect. but I just need the white background. So what I did was, on the corner, if you grab a corner of type or image, both things, you'll see the two-headed arrow, the little rotation. So we haven't talked so much about rotation, but you can do it, right? You can take a photo and then rotate it a half a degree, a nano of a degree, everything that you want to do, right, to create some sort of interesting angle or treatment on what it is that you got going on. So let's just say now I want to bring same treatment, just a slight variation, right? This is how when I do logos and I evolve a piece of it, I want to show these two side by side. Okay, so I'm going to do it again. I'm going to take, in fact, watch this trick. If you choose the artboard tool in Illustrator, and then it'll select the last artboard that you're working on. So in here I have artboard 2. If I click and drag, it'll take both the artboard, the photo, and my type and just make a copy of it. Really, really handy. Okay, now let's see what else we can do. Let's put the type inside. Okay, somewhat interesting, but this is important, right? This is the kind of stuff that you gotta get going so that you can start to get the really good ideas coming out. All right, let's try this. Let's make the type huge. All right, and we'll let that N sit nice on there, okay? So here I am now. I'm breaking the... So I did the traditional one where I just had the type on the outside, sort of just next to the image, proximity. And then I had now where they are superimposed, where the image is on, or the type is on top of the image. And now I'm doing both, right? Now I even play with the scale, where the type becomes the dominant element over the image, and we're sort of breaking the background, right? Where the type crashes, it's called crashing, into the image. Now, this makes some designers crazy, but like I said, it's a trend, it's exciting, it's interesting. So, you know, if you have some good ideas, you know, you can sort of play with stuff like this. Here's something even wilder. Watch this. Let's take this example that we've done here, and we're going to take just the N. I've selected it with the type tool, and then I'm going to change it to white. Ooh, amazing. And look at what we got. Whoa! Epic. Okay. And I know it's like we're trying all these exciting things, but you know, the point is that like you guys should be experimenting. You should be sort of feeling, I guess we should say, look at the photo, right? Like that's the first thing I do, because the photo is going to be the support system, right? The photo is going to be like, all right, the thing that like holds up what it is that we're doing. Let me get one here now. Let's see. Free stock photos for designers. There's going to be some great stuff in here. Okay, cool. So this website, 6 revisions, have 15 best places for designers to get stock photos online. Yes. All right, so there's the stock exchange, which I have to sign up for. I know I do. Here, morgue file. Very good one. So morgue file, here it is. Let's see if we can find, I'm going to find a landscape image. No, I don't want to hear from your sponsors. Oh gosh. Wow. Okay, so let's do landscape. Oh gosh. I'm just getting all sorts of... All right, so I'm looking for a photo that has a landscape. That's somewhat interesting because landscapes themselves have their own lines built into them. So that's a fun one to play with. And I'll make sure to include a landscape image for you guys to play with. But I'm on morgue file right now, morgue file.com. And I just did a quick search. We're not going to get the big old high-res stuff. I believe that you have to sign in to make this happen. So I'm looking for a nice landscape. Here we go. Let's go with this one. Okay, so let's see, is it going to make me sign in? Nope, cool, I can just download it. That's great. All right. All right, so I downloaded the photo, and I've got it now on my computer. So I'm going to do the second route of opening an image in Illustrator, and that's going to be where I find the photo, and I can do one of two things. I can do open with, and then Illustrator CC. You'll see it, there's the photo. Or I can drag it onto the Illustrator icon, that sort of thing. Okay, one thing to note, that if you ever drag a photo inside of an Illustrator window, you're doing something different than pasting. It's called placing. So when you place a photo inside of Illustrator that way, it doesn't actually go inside of the image. It acts as a linked image. So if you ever need to print that image out, you'll need to have that photo with you whenever you go to a printer. Just want you to know that in case you think, oh, cool, there it goes, right, when you drop it in. And all of a sudden when you go to print, you're like, I don't have my photo. Right, you're missing that high-res asset, and you'll be in trouble. So just be careful with that. All right, so this I've opened right in Illustrator, so I can select it. I'm going to copy it and then bring it over to my document where we're working. All right, I'll paste, and then I'll shrink it down so it fits into the spaces that we're working with. Now this is an example different than the torn, because what it does is this is a self-contained photo, right? It's like we're most likely, because it's a landscape image, put the type right inside of the space. Okay, so I'm looking here, and the one line that every landscape has, that is the sort of superior superstructure line, is the horizon line, right? It's what makes it a landscape. All landscapes have horizon lines, whether they are opened or closed landscapes. So if you look here, along the trees behind this river birch is, it's amazing I know that, is the horizon line, right? We have these beautiful trees and then the nice blue sky. So, right, if we were to add the word beauty, right, and put it in space, right, that's not so beautiful. But you can see that's a good spot, right, for us to put things. So I could change the color here and go to white. All right, and that's kind of nice. I could even, we haven't even done this yet, I could choose the type here and then go up to the character menu at the top. Right, I'm also able to, with the type palette, open up the character palette. Here is the character palette, which shows all of the fonts that I have on my machine. So these are all the fonts that I currently have on my computer. So if I'm doing something that says beauty, I'm going to look for a font face that is beautiful, that's soft and maybe script, maybe something that's not so like just geometric and stern, like Myriad. Okay. Yeah, I maybe would use that one, but if I did, I might write it all lowercase, right? The all caps was not sort of working for me in that regard. Okay. So yeah, right, so a couple things at play here, right? So we got an image and then we've got a word, and I sort of made up the word based on the image. I apologize, but you know, that may be the genesis for a project you're working on, and then you know how we want that word to feel, I think, is going to be contingent on the typeface. So those things are like the initial parts, and then you figure out, well, where do I put it, right? How do I sort of make this happen? So you can see that like a typeface like this, if I put it over areas that have a lot going on in the background, it's a little hard to read, right? It's not the best choice for what it is that we've done, all right? Versus in the open a beautiful blue screen, right, blue sky, that works great. I can read it just fine. So sometimes that typeface may need to shift a little bit, right? So if we're using this Snell roundhand regular, well, there's a bold version of it, and then a black version, right? So black is like the thickest, sort of boldest weighted typeface that style that there are. So this now might start to work a little bit better. Like if we were to like get a little avant-garde and put the beauty right here in this space. Right? We can also, one other thing is I could make this huge and then bring it back to its regular weight. And you can see how it sort of interplays, and there's a little more white in the typeface, so it's a little bit easier to read. But I'm doing my squint test to sort of see how it feels. Okay. So not a ton of options in this this image here, but you could get creative. Like one thing here, I'll show you really fast, and this is an advanced skill. So I'll demonstrate here, and I'll simply talk to her, but we will get back to it. Is you can do something called type on a path. So check this out. If I take my pencil tool, I can trace the horizon line, right, just like this. Okay, and I've made a path, and you can probably see it there. It's blue. And then now, with the type tool, if I hold the type tool down with my mouse, there is a type on a path tool. So if I take this type on a path tool, and if I click on the path over here, I can now, right, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And if you look, the type is running along the path. All right, I'll make this bigger. I'm going to use now the type size menu right there, just so that the letters get bigger, so that they can be a little bit more useful to us. And look at that, right? The type is just like the McCall's ad is running along the top there. What's even really cool is it's like, man, if the type was just perfectly over this tree and over that one, why did I do that? What was I thinking? Well, guess what? You can use the white arrow, right? You can find that little space there, and you can lift this up, right? Because we're in a vector environment, all this stuff is editable, right? I can change it all and make it do what I need it to do, right? You don't always get that option in Photoshop. It's not always available to you, right? If you're just sort of working and changing stuff and that's it. You're beholden to resolution, so you have to be really careful. But in this case, this lets us really experiment, right? Really play with what it is that we got going on. Okay, so type can be scaled, the color can change, it can be rotated, it can be put on a path. All these things can be done to it to help it sort of integrate with the image in a much, much better way. Okay, so guys, what we're going to do is I'm going to post some images up on my courses. I'm going to do this in a minute once we say goodbye from the video. And this is our assignment. All right. What we're going to do is you guys are going to take 5 images. I'll give you 5 images that'll be up there, and then I'll give you 5 words, and you choose whichever word you think goes with whatever photo and whatever typeface. But what I'm looking for is 3 examples, 3 clever examples for each. So that's 15 examples of how you're marrying type to image. Okay, and like I said, just experiment. Get crazy. If something breaks or doesn't do what you want it to do, right? We're not going for an advertisement right now. We're not in project mode yet. So this is just to see what's possible, what you're absolutely capable of doing, and it's just an introduction to really a lot of things, right? Bringing photos into Illustrator, combining them with type, using the type tool, sourcing high-resolution imagery, thinking about the interplay of 2 objects in a space, right, so that they can sort of form this ultimate beautiful bond of things. We looked at the classic traditional examples where sometimes type is outside the image, sometimes it's inside, and then we discussed some of the things that you need to be considerate of when you're putting the type inside of the image, right? Make sure you got contrast. Make sure that there's readability. Make sure that the way that the type is flowing is sort of matching the way that the photo is flowing, the curves and lines and angles of that, right? We saw some successful examples of where that really works. So that's that's your standard. That's what you want to really start to achieve when you're doing this. So what this will all lead to in the future is that you're going to be awesome at combining type and image. Tons of times we're going to be making ads where type and image come together. That's what don't tell anybody, but this is the secret of graphic design, is that you play with type and images all day and figure out how they come together. So if you can start now with this and get a real comfortable sense of how things go, and like I said, any typeface is good, just experiment, then you are on a good path. Okay? So quick lesson tonight, but a huge lesson, something that we're going to need to be doing for a long, 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 long time. So we looked at Lost and Taken, right, which was a great website. I'm going to post this up on my courses right now for us to experiment with. Okay, so we got type and image, and let's see here. I'm going to post these links for you guys. So we'll add an activity or resource, and then we will make, where's the URL? Okay, so this will be lost and taken high-res textures. Okay, http://www.lostandtaken.com. All right, and let's see, one last thing. All variables. No, I'm not sure what's happening here. Okay, well, anyway, so that should take you to where you need to go. All right, we're using Illustrator. Yep, Lost and Taken is here. And like I said, just do a Google search. Here, I'll put it in here. Right, inspiration. Google search. Type over image. Okay. We talked about the Foster app for iOS, Android. Yeah, what else was there? There was Overgram, and then just the app Over. Okay. Great ways to practice. If you're just looking to sort of just quickly practice, if you fancy yourself as a great, sort of on-the-move photographer, now you can bring in the mix, adding that typographic treatment, right? And you'll get a chance to familiarize yourself with a bunch of really usable typefaces. Luckily for us, the folks who are at Foster and Over and all those places chose some pretty good typefaces that work well with any photo because they want their app to be successful. So it's got to have that stuff really built into it. And that's going to sort of give you a foundation for later on making good typographic choices. This is a brand new way that I'm teaching this because I wanted to give you guys something called a manipulative, meaning the photos that you can take and then combine. So here we'll, hang on really fast, I'm going to just add a forum. So you guys are going to post these images, okay? Let's see, where are you? Wow, it's the first time I'm using my courses. Unbelievable. So we got a forum, and we'll do simple single discussion. So I'll say post your 5, or let's see, your 15 type and image combo examples. Okay, so I'll say choose 5 image. I'm going to let you guys do that. Choose 5 images. I'm not going to give them to you from Lost and Taken, and set one of the following words in any typeface that you wish, and then save a JPEG to share here. Okay, cool. All right, so we'll make up some words here. Right, one of them was beauty. Second one is anger. Next one is geometric. Next one is awesome. And then last one is horrid. There we go. All right, so 5 words: beauty, anger, geometric, awesome, horrid. Okay, so I would like for you guys to take these and then set beauty 3 times, right? 3 different ways. And then, yeah, so, right, choose wisely. You've got your 5 images, so you can sort of mix and match and have them all come together as you wish. And you can use any typeface. Again, experiment, right? Really, 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 really play. That's what I'm looking for. So if you've got a wild idea, post it. I think it's going to be so rad to make that happen. Okay. So here's one last thing. Let me. Yep. Ratings. Yeah. Okay. Scale is pass fail. Okay. Good to good. So last thing here. Once you guys are in Illustrator, right, you've come up with all of your examples. Watch what you're going to do. Okay, so there are all my examples. I'm going to take my artboard and I'm going to do this. I'm going to draw a giant artboard around all my artboards. It's insane. Okay. Now, mind you, I've got some weird cropping going on here, so that's not going to be awesome for this. So that's a little bit of a fail, but not a big deal. But for this, for experiment, it's really good. So drawing that big artboard surrounding all of this, watch this. File, save for web. And then what I end up with now is a giant image that has all my examples in one. In one. Oh my God. All right, so we're going to choose JPEG. And we'll lower this to 60%. Yep, 719K, perfect size. And it's big. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And then we'll save. And then this guy is going to go onto our space. So type an image, saved. And then I'm going to post this here onto my courses for you guys to see as an example. So I'll edit. All right, and then now I will be able to upload an image, choose, and then we'll go to downloads. And okay, type an image JPEG. Good to go. Upload this file. And that thing is now going to go up onto my courses. And then that'll be a nice example for us to see. Okay, insert. Are you sure? Yeah, it wants to just do the description. It's really okay. Cool. So it's huge. Here's what we're going to do so I don't destroy this. Is I'm going to put the information stuff just above it. There we go. So it's at the top, and then you guys will have the photos right underneath. It is possible, by the way, to shrink this down inside of here. I don't know if you guys have experimented with that, but if you, I'm in Chrome right now, but if you pull this down, you can sort of shrink the photo a little bit. I realize my photo is like 3,000 pixels wide. That's ginormous. So I'm just getting it down a little smaller, just so it's viewable in the space. Really, we're just going to look all together and then just get some ideas. That's the whole thing, is to just get some cool ideas out. Because then we get into project mode, and then it's on, right? Then it's like, all right, everybody, bring your best. So we'll save and return to course. Okay, and now inside that forum, if you guys go to my courses, you'll see there it is, right? So I'll say choose 5 images from Lost and Taken, and then good to go. All right, and I'll make sure, guys, that this assignment is posted here. And this will be due next week, okay? So please make sure that you guys get on this. Assignment. Okay, so we will experiment. All right, so we'll say, and I'll even make the Lost and Taken the hyperlink. Look at that. www.lostandtaken.com, and then we're going to choose open in a new window, insert. Look at that. Wow, in text hyperlink. Beauty. Cool. Okay, so that is there now for you folks. You've got your inspiration to do the search, and then you've got the link to Lost and Taken here and here. Bam, redundancy. And then you've got your place to post your photo examples. Okay, so guys, as we mentioned here, we're going to be looking at doing a project. Okay, that I think we're going to be able to pull this off in between doing our minimalist movie poster and finishing up the semester. And it's going to be the design of your favorite band and your favorite song. you're going to do one song, a single CD case. Okay, so take a look here. This is, let's see. So we'll do a CD single. All right, so these are just examples of CD singles. If you've never seen a CD in your life, it's just what these look like. But they focus on the one song, right? They sort of have a vibe, a feeling of a specific of the album, but yeah, they're definitely much more specific to the song. Okay, so like, check out this Taylor Swift, because I know we're all huge Taylor Swift fans, right? Look at the way the type and the image work there, right? So this is going to be what we work on. So you guys are going to create a front and back and a from scratch concept that combines type and image. Now we're not done with image, right? We're going to then learn how to do photo design, which is we're going to be using Photoshop, and we're going to learn how to cut up images, high-res images, and recombine them so that they fit seamlessly together, and create collage and montage. It's going to be pretty rad. So that's what's coming up. Okay, that's why we're doing this and experimenting with type and image. I want you to get crazy and sort of see what you think is possible now, without the pressure of a project, which is going to sort of, you know, force you to do some things that maybe you wouldn't have done had you had the chance to experiment. Cool. The assignment is posted. Okay, coming back to you here real quick. The assignment's posted. Okay, you guys just got a demo on how to combine type and image. I want you now to be sensitive, right? Go out into the world. Look at the books on your shelves. I'm pointing at my bookshelf right quick. The records that you have, the posters that you see, the television shows that you see, the apps that you work with now, and notice how type and image fuse, right? What kind of relationship do they have? Is it a relationship based on physics or action? Is it a relationship based on color? Is it a relationship based on position on the page? I mean, there's so many ways that come from gestalt theory, and then also the fundamentals of just composition that really will allow us to create that fusion. And when it works, guys, it absolutely works amazingly, right? When we looked at those classic examples, those are my favorite. When I want inspiration, that's where I go. I look at those things and I'm like, well, how are we going to pull this off, right? How are we going to sort of make this sort of thing fuse together and do what it is that we need to do? So with that, guys, I will see you next week. Email with any questions, okay? But happy fusing, all right, of type and image. I really think you guys are going to love this. All right, take it easy. Peace.